Listening to the Vegan Body Coach podcast, all about optimizing your strength, fitness, and physique through a plant-focused diet. My name is Jackson Burton, and I'm a nutrition and training coach for vegans, the plant-centric, and plant-curious. I'm sitting down with athletes, experts, and influencers around the world to inspire you to create your best vegan body yet. So, Nicky, welcome to the Vegan Body Coach podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's I guess bound to happen because I met you at a very interesting class, and then found out you were vegan, and I was like, maybe she could be a good guest for the podcast.
Yeah.
And then found out that you've got some very interesting points and takes on different things, and a good way of looking at life. So it makes sense that we get you on and have a good discussion.
Yeah, I like it. Let's do it.
Yeah. So. Do you want to give, the listeners won't know who you are at all. So do you want to give them a little rundown of who you are, what you're up to, what you do with your days?
Yeah.
Anything of interest?
I mean, I'm quite a boring person, but we'll give it a go.
That.
I am, my name's Nicky. So by trade, I'm actually a photographer and graphic designer. That's kind of what I studied. And then I was kind of in that industry for a while and kind of seeked more purpose in life. I just felt like it wasn't very fulfilling. So I kind of started looking in instructing, because I used to go to a lot of gym classes myself, and I was just like, damn, they're cool. Like,
yeah.
I didn't care about celebrities. I cared about my instructors. And I was like, that's cool. I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to encourage the energy in a room like that. It was just like, really captivating. So I basically kind of took a leap, started coaching some classes, and like my first year was a bit shaky, and then I kind of built from there, and then eventually just kind of tapped out of my 9 to 5 completely. And now I'm doing classes like spin classes, rhythm-based cycling, HIIT, all that kind of stuff, and trying to still stay creative by doing lots of like food photography and playing around with that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I try and put my hand in probably too many pies at once, but
It keeps life interesting though.
yeah, I've just like we were saying, it's just I want to live every day I don't want it to be working to a point that I'm then living for the weekend or living for the time off. I want it to be like within the day. I want to be present. I want to be doing stuff on kind of my agenda, my times and stuff like that. So yeah, I fought really hard to kind of create a life like that, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it now.
Yes. It's like some struggle street early on though, right? Like when you first start to go, because it's a very similar journey for myself. It's like you start chasing that kind of passion that you want to chase in terms of what you want to do, spend doing your days, right? Yeah. But then people are always like, just like make the leap and like drop your job and go and chase that thing. And for the most people, that's not practical. Yeah. It's like, no, I still have to pay bills. So, so you need to have this like transition period where you move from doing a 9 to 5 job to maybe like dropping back your hours, or just choosing a completely different job that just kind of gets you by for a while, but has like less hours, and you start to pursue what you're truly passionate about and what fulfills you. Yeah. But that doesn't pay the bills like initially, right? And you have to go through this like really grindy period where you might be doing like stupidly long hours. You might be like tired all the time, but that does pay off. And I think it's not super hard to do those really hard periods where you are fatigued and tired and worn out, because it is bringing you some level of fulfillment, right?
Yeah.
So for you, it was like chasing that I guess working with people and seeing them change throughout your classes, and even your own development, like you said about the instructors, like they had like a vibe about like what do you think that vibe is? Because I've seen that the same thing. Even when I've been in certain classes, I'm like, oh, that instructor's cool. Like, what do you think it is about an instructor? Is it just like confidence? Yeah,
look, I think it's not even just with instructors, but I think like confidence, like you've nailed it there. Like confidence is sexy. Yeah. And like, I think when we get more into like the conversation about like body image and kind of stuff like that, I started being really inspired by people that, looked different to me and had different body shapes, but there was just something about them. And it was like, generally they were just confident in their own skin and like, and so the instructors that kind of bring that as well. But I think a lot of it is being able to influence energy and create energy and kind of bring the best out of other people to want to bring their energy to the table as well. And it is actually quite a tricky thing to do. It's not like I've been to classes and, you know, some instructors haven't motivated me as much and others motivate me more. And like, as I'm still learning, like everyone's got different flavors on what inspires them and what kind of captivates them. But I think, I would say it's probably confidence, but there's always a fine line, right, between confidence and cocky.
Yes.
So it's like, how do you be confident without being cocky? And I think it's something that, like, when you're authentic to yourself, and when people used to say this to me in the beginning, like, you know, be authentic, and this is kind of where I was going through my trainings, and they're like, be your authentic self, and I was like, I don't know how to be my authentic. Like, what do you mean? Like, how? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's something that people say, but there's kind of no practical application of like being authentic. Like, you don't learn essentially how to be authentic. You can't kind of take a little class and go, I'm authentic now.
Yes.
So for that was a very big part of my journey. It was kind of like, you know, how do I want to be on the bike? And I think, you know, for a while there it was, I kind of had an alter ego. So it was kind of like who I wanted to be, my kind of most superstar rock star self. And I kind of like channeled that, and that kind of gave me the room to really express myself. And then from there it became more authentic in what I was doing.
Totally.
Yeah. So
totally. Oh, I think a lot of us have to, like that old saying, like, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I totally own that for so long. Like when I, because I think a lot of people look at me now and they think I'm like this super confident guy who has my life together in some way, or just, you know, is good at communicating with people or talking with people or whatever.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case. And like, I spent my, you know, I was a shy-ish kid until I got to know people, right? And kind of felt a little more introverted. And then even through my army years, I wasn't like super confident. I mean, it built like a level of confidence, but then it wasn't until I studied PT at the specific college where they were really focused on like self-development and positivity and like basically making you feel like you could do anything and encouraging you and like, and helping you like envision your dreams and things like this. And it wasn't until I did that, and we did a lot of public speaking practice and, you know, just heaps of self-development, that I kind of like found this newfound like confidence in myself and who I was, and realized that I do have something to bring to the table. But then also still after that, having to kind of like fake it, like fake the, I don't know, the, like, especially when you're going into like starting a business or something like that, it's like, it's really daunting. So I kind of just had to like, just suck it up and like fake the confidence to make it happen.
Yeah.
Like almost dupe myself into thinking that I'm good enough to do it.
Yeah.
Because those doubts keep coming up, and you have to be like overcoming those somehow. So I think, I don't know. I think that confidence is just so important. And I do like the point you brought up about like the difference between confidence and cockiness. And I just thought about it as you said. I was like, maybe one of the differences there is with confidence, there's also like the aspect of how you can empathize with people and how you communicate with people. So you can be confident and not cocky if you're like still a really good person and you meet with people on their level and you're interested in them and you take time with them. Whereas like you can meet cocky people who like seem confident, but then they're just a bit of a douche, right?
Yes,
so I think there's like that massive difference there for sure.
I think it's like, where are you innately coming from with your confidence? So like something I learned very early on was they're probably just as scared as you are. You know, they're just as intimidated. And I mean, I went through quite a bit of my life having this internal dialogue, and I thought I was the only one that had these kind of thoughts, not like that I was special in any way, but I was just like, oh, everyone else just seems like they've got their shit together and they're fine and they're confident and whatever. But like, I think deep down, we all are actually having a very similar experience on how we perceive ourselves to other people and whatnot. So understanding that they're probably just as intimidated. They're probably internally like freaking out as well. And so just kind of biting the bullet and just being like, look, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to like encourage this conversation. I'm going to be open. And look, if they're not meeting you there, that's like fine. And you've got to remember that it's them, not so much you, but it's where they're at. So it's like being confident to kind of break those walls will hopefully allow other people to be like, yeah, I want to join in on this conversation with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like ripping the Band-Aid a lot of the time and just kind of biting the bullet.
Yeah.
And just,
yeah. And how do you feel now when you like take a class? Is it a lot more like natural for you?
Yeah, I would say it is, but I would still say I still get nervous.
Yeah.
And I don't see that as a bad thing. I think it's because I just love it so much. I care about it so much, and I care about the experience other people are going to have. And I never want that to go away.
Yeah.
So if that, it's kind of like understanding that being nervous or understanding your emotions might not be the narrative that you've once thought those emotions are to have meant. And so using it in a way that's like, okay, I'm nervous, but this is good. I'm going to use this, as opposed to going into a negative narrative that is almost kind of like self-demolishing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So I guess for the listeners, they don't even know what we're talking about. What do you teach?
What do I teach? So in New Zealand, we're pretty much the only one that do this, but rhythm-based cycling is kind of my main space. And basically what I mean by rhythm-based cycling is we have cracking playlists where you're basically riding to the beat of the music. And I always say it's less of feeling like you're on a bike and more kind of feeling like you're on an elliptic walker, because you're up so much of the class and you're kind of like moving your upper body. And I think because a lot of people, when they think spin classes, they've got years of like this kind of traditional spin. So it's quite intimidating for people when they hear spin the class. They go, oh, no, that's not for me. And because we're not exposed to rhythm-based cycling as much here as the rest of the world has kind of been. So we're slowly catching. Yeah. Slowly catching. But it's basically, if I was to nail it in one sentence, it's basically just a party on a bike. So, yeah, it's just a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah, well, for me, who had no idea what rhythm cycling was, and I was invited to come along to this class, at, what was it, 6 a.m?
I think or something? Yes, you did. You hit it on a Tuesday, didn't you?
And rock up there, and I expected a spin class, which I'd done before and hated it because it was just like non-stop pain. But came in and like put on the special shoes, sit on the bike in this room, and it's like, it's a little bit like dark, but then suddenly like when you came in and then the lights went all the way down, and it was like, ooh, what's going on? This is going to be interesting. And it was like, it was super dark, which is comforting because, you know, you don't know what the hell you're doing and you're like new to this thing and you're going to die. And then it was just like all go, and the music comes on and like, you're like pumped up, and I'm like, I'm pumped up. And then like,
are you awake?
Yeah. And then it was like, the music was like spot on, like you said. And it was this whole idea of trying to match my legs with the rhythm of, and I'm a drummer, like, and I grew up drumming. So like that should have been easy for me. Yeah. But also it wasn't, because it was like, I'm trying to hit the beat, but I'm trying to match my resistance on the bike to allow me to hit the speed of the beat. Yeah. And I'm like looking around at these other girls doing it. I'm like, wow, how are they doing? Like,
what are they on?
Yeah, what are they doing? And then it's this whole idea of like, we then start moving around the bike. Like we're moving forwards, we're moving back. Yeah. You know, we're like flicking our heads up and down and all this crazy stuff, which is like, I guess it just changes the dynamic of the session not to be so like one dimensional. Yeah. It's like, we're not just cycling. We're like doing these other things that provide a benefit of like dynamic to the exercise session. So I'm not like bored the whole way through.
Yeah, I think it's like tapping into your expressive self and being more intuitive with your workout as opposed to just being told what to do and when.
Right.
A lot of it is based around, like, you know, you're in control of your resistance. You're in control whether you come up out of the saddle or down in the saddle. The party's going to continue happening regardless. And it's whether, like, how much energy you want to, like I always say to people, this is a conversation. I may be up on the podium bringing energy, but it's a conversation between you and me, and like what energy you bring as well will affect the room. So it's not ever just about me. I'm just like facilitating a room full of energy, basically. So you can influence that energy by how you show up.
Okay, so a little intermission here. We did have some problems with the audio recording there. So it did cut off just a little bit of what Nicky was saying, but we'll be back into it in just a moment. Take this time now, if you haven't already, jump on the iTunes podcast app, give us a quick review, 5 stars if you think it's 5 stars. And that always helps other people to find this podcast and find this content as well. Maybe share it with a friend. Flick it around. We'd love to have more people listening to people like Nicky. Let's get back into it. All right. We're back.
We're back.
What were we talking about?
I have no idea. Memory of a goldfish.
Okay, well, yeah, where were we?
I feel like it was something really important.
It really was.
Yeah.
You were in a flow
I was
state.
in a zone. What
We're talking about like confidence, and then okay, so we're in the class.
You're in the class connecting to music.
Connecting to music.
Yes.
Go.
Pretty much that's my class. Yeah. Just go. Yeah, so I think like what's really special about it is that you're kind of taken through an emotional journey as well as a physical journey, and with hope that you leave empowered, and it's a place to actually practice confidence because you're doing things that are quite out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And you know you're essentially working out to music that kind of fuels empowerment as well. So it just kind of like gets you going a bit. Yeah.
I know that, like, I think if I like gave you like my 10 favorite songs.
Yeah.
And like I did a rhythm class to that, I would be like in some kind of like euphoric state where I'd just be because it'd be so like so much adrenaline, like hearing those songs that really hit me and touch me and I love.
Yeah.
And then also exercising and doing it with people, and you're in a dark space where you are feeling safe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it'd be an experience. But even like the songs we were doing it to, I can't remember what they were, but they were perfect. It was great. And like you said, you describe it as a journey, right? The session, we're not just going the whole time.
No.
It's like ups and there's downs, and you're kind of going through this journey, and then there's this really nice like meditative experience at the end. Yeah. Where like the music came down lower. I didn't even know what was playing, but like you stopped talking. Yeah. And everyone's just like kind of cycling real slow. I love that part. Are we doing that on Sunday?
Yeah, that's Okay, good. We love that.
Yeah, let's do that for like half the session.
I've had that requested, and I'm like, I don't know if that would go too well.
Yeah. And then the other thing that was really interesting was we had those little dumbbells.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we doing with these dumbbells?
Very small, but deceivingly dangerous.
Yeah, they're really tough.
Did you go 3s?
I think so. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. That would have been our biggest.
Right.
And you would have came in like...
I'm actually like, I know not to do that now because I've done that in I went to a grit class once, and you know, all the guys are in there grabbing, like putting all these weights on their little bars. Yeah. And I'm looking at them going, you're an idiot. Like, you're going to get rocked. Like, this isn't like a freaking max bench press competition. No. Like, this is us like doing interval training with weights, basically.
Like, you got to move that fast.
Yeah. So I was like, I went in light. So, but yeah, no, I think I enjoyed the session. I think I did.
I'll reevaluate.
I'm going to reevaluate. Yes.
You'll have to give me some of your songs.
Yeah. I'd have to put a playlist. I think it would be super cool.
Call it Jax's playlist.
Yeah.
Very original.
Okay, yeah. So that's one of the things you do. You do the rhythm cycling.
Yeah.
Which is, like you said, is very popular in the States and things like that, but it's just, sort of popping up over here. And then you do some other classes as well, HIIT classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you sort of structure your own training around that? Because you have obviously had a bit of an evolution with your own training, right, as well. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah. So I guess when I first started, I was very like class-based, didn't really know how to work out for myself as per se. Well, when I actually first started fit, like I've always been active since I was little. I was doing football, like soccer, for years and years and years. And I think there came a point that I was like, I don't really want to do soccer anymore.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to not be active. And then I remember my friends kind of had like a personal trainer. So I was like, oh, I'll go check this out. Like, what is this? And kind of got me moving in like different ways. And then kind of from there, I was introduced into like the gym environment. Still very intimidated. So just going to classes and doing that kind of thing. And it's not till probably the last like 2 years that I've really kind of found strength training and power training and kind of moving my body for more of a performance-based approach. So I generally still try and train 3 to 4 times a week doing like strength-based stuff or power-based stuff, which it obviously can be hard to juggle. As like I've said, I can do quite a few cardio-based classes throughout the week. So I just need to make sure that I'm giving my body what it needs to be able to perform in those sessions, and I'm going into my own training in the best environment for like my body and for my mental health and stuff like that. Yeah, because at the end of the day, I love working out in so many different ways. So yeah, I do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
I think for a lot of group fitness instructors, they could easily get to a point where they're just exercising so much. But I think almost like we discussed earlier, they're exercising so much with the mindset of like, oh, I'll just do more because I'm burning more calories and like I'm going to get leaner and I'm going to get fitter and blah, blah, blah. But they don't realize that at the same time, they're probably degrading their ability to be a great instructor because they're so fatigued all the time and they're underfed and like, if you're doing, like taking like 8 sessions a week or something, that's like a huge toll on the body. And if you're not refueling that, you're going to be a pretty poor instructor in my mind. And
then even outside of that, like it obviously influences your energy and your mood, and you don't want the people you love around you to experience basically a shell off a human, so it's like it's that whole thing where it's like you're only kind of working out for maybe like an hour or 2 a day, but it's the other 22 hours that are really going to make the difference.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, it's more of a holistic approach. It's not just focusing on the training. It's everyday routine and tapping into that. Yeah.
What do you think your mindset was before you got into strength training when you were exercising? Because you were doing a lot of class-based stuff. You wanted to stay active. What was the goal there in mind? And then how did that like sort of evolve as you decided to start doing more strength training?
Well, I think it's a hard one because I think I'd always done fitness in some way. Like I was always playing sports, and when I was playing sports, it was purely for the enjoyment and purely for performance. During high school, I never kind of really thought too much about like exercising for aesthetics. So it wasn't kind of playing in my mind too much. But I think, when I kind of hit university, I kind of became a bit more self-aware of my body, because I wasn't this little girl anymore. I was kind of growing into a woman, and came with that like a lot of shame, which is like quite natural. And so I think I became more focused on the aesthetics, and I was starting to go to classes because I wanted to look a certain way, and I thought I had to look a certain way to be attractive and to be valued. And that kind of mindset stayed with me for like a very long time and kind of led me down a path that got to a point that I was just like, something's not right. This is not working. Like, I can't do this anymore. And then that's kind of when I started looking outside what I thought I knew, and kind of found strength training. And then, you know, it's very intimidating going into a gym and lifting weights when you don't really know what you're doing yet, and kind of stuff like that. So it was like such a process. But through that, like, I started actually getting stronger. And from that, I became empowered, and just the whole feeling of feeling strong and being strong I no longer resonated so much with the aesthetic. Like, I think there will always be an element of aesthetic because it's what you see every day, and you know, when you look good, you feel good.
It's very true.
But it's about creating something more sustainable than that's not the only thing you're relying on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think for me, like, strength training actually changed my mindset so much to the place that I'm at now, that I'm training for fun, I'm training for performance, and it's just such a long way from what I kind of thought I knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think, like, the initial, like you said, you got into university, you're growing into a woman. Where do you think that shame comes from, that initial, like, feeling of shame that you probably didn't experience when you were as an adolescent, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's something I'm looking at retrospectively.
Yeah.
So it's not something I was really aware of then. But I think, generally speaking, for a lot of women, becoming a woman is kind of a shameful experience because your body's changing, and we're not really open about how our body changes, and therefore we don't really accept how our body changes. And I think for a lot of us, it essentially becomes us versus our body. You know, we're no longer working with our body. We want the body we had before we started maturing. We want to be the size we were when we were at 16, 17, 18, because in theory that was our prime, you know. So we then spend kind of like really teething years not accepting our body and fighting with how we look, and, you know, wanting to change everything about us. And it also comes down to like going through, you know, having your period and stuff like that. It's not an open conversation. It's something that we learn to hide from people, specifically hide from men.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can look at research that dates way back on that, developing through society and stuff like that. So it's been with us for so long, and we're not really challenging it. We're starting to challenge it. We're starting to challenge shame. But I think for a lot of women, when they first are confronted with the word shame, like, do you feel shameful? They don't really connect it. But when you actually kind of start dissecting into what shame means in that context, you kind of go, oh yeah, like that's where I'm at. That's how I feel. So yeah, it's basically rewiring or understanding kind of the journey of becoming a woman and looking to embrace it as opposed to reject it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's so intricate and it's so deep, and these like ideologies about what it means to be a woman and how society views women and how men view women are so ingrained you know, for millennia, right?
Yeah.
So it's only now that, you know, feminist movements and, you know, womanism and things like this are like really starting to take hold, which is so positive, but there's still so much, you know, there's so much work to be done, and you're really working against the grain, you know, when you've got a lot of men who are just still in their seat of power, right? Where they think it's all about, you know, them, and the woman's just an object, and it's about, you know, that perfect image and you know, and it's just thrown at us all the time everywhere we look, right? Yeah. Which I think, you know, probably you growing up in school, probably about the same time as me when like social media wasn't a thing. it like really, I mean, there's still obviously huge amount of worth or value put on the cosmetic side of how you look and things like that, but not so much as to what you see now, because now you're on Instagram, you see the people all around the world, whereas when we were growing up, you just see who's in front of you, right? So now you're like your pool is much bigger, right? So you're seeing all these different people, you're comparing yourself to them, and you're wanting more for yourself. So I think like definitely big positives growing up in the years that we did, and the kids growing up now just have to deal with so much more in terms of that. But not even the kids, the adults as well, like, and us, right? We're still dealing with it now. But I think, and I guess that leads us on to, like, in the past, I think on your Instagram and things, you've mentioned you've had, distorted eating tendencies, or even eating disorder. Was it diagnosed? I'm not too sure. But do you mind sharing about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so I guess like I said, I started with focusing so much on aesthetic, and I think it got to a point that I, started... You do the whole thing where you Google like how to lose weight, or and you're reading blogs and you're reading basically junk, for lack of a better word. But you're young and you're impressionable, and you trust these sources because I don't know, like for example, my mum grew up, reading like Women's Day magazines, Women's Weekly magazines. So that kind of like, when you grow up with that, you kind of think, okay, if they're publishing this, if they're a resource, it must be legit. You don't question it too much, because these are essentially the people that are in the field and they're professionals. So yeah, I think I just took like a lot of bad advice, and I wasn't as critical thinking as I am now. And then, it got to a point that I felt like guilty and shameful around food and eating food, and that kind of like led to basically bulimia, and kind of like binge eating, and just basically lost control with how I viewed food and my experience with food, that I got so asphyxiated with it. It dominated my life. It was every day, every meal, every thought was just like about food, and not in like a positive way. It'd be like, why did I eat that? Or I shouldn't have eaten that. That was bad. And then I'll be like, oh, but I'm so hungry. When's my next meal? I'd be laying in bed at night after eating dinner going, oh, I just want to wake up for breakfast, and what am I going to have for breakfast? And then I'll feel guilty once I've eaten breakfast, and it's just like this constant cycle. So I went through that for probably about 1.5 to 2 years, and I never really thought it was a problem. Like I knew it wasn't good. But I was like, this is just kind of what I've got to do to have the body that I want, kind of thing. But at the same time, not having the body that I wanted. Right. I was just kind of thin, tired, moody, So that was kind of a big experience. Yeah,
totally. And I think it's far more common than we realize. Like even just not a defined or what's the word? What did I use before? Diagnosed eating disorder. Yeah. More so disordered eating. Yeah. Is incredibly common.
Or disordered thinking as well. Yeah. Just like I mean, just because people are having thoughts around food that might be quite negative doesn't mean, like, you don't need a disorder to basically be like, I'm not in the right state of mind. Yeah. So like even your thinking, like evaluating how you're thinking can really affect your choices on food and your experience especially like when you're eating out with people and stuff like that. All the social things become like detrimental to your mental state. So it's like you don't even have to have a full-fledged disorder to be affected.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think like that's a great point, is like so much of our life revolves around the social aspect of eating.
Yeah.
And like something we work on with clients all the time is like, yeah, we're trying to meet specific targets for our nutrition and implement these healthy habits and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, like if there's a social event you want to go to and have a good time, like, yes, like this is what life is about. Like you don't want to, you know, get to 60 years old and realize you missed all your amazing events with friends and with family and stuff as, you know, a 20 and 30-year-old because you were so fixated on the aesthetics, right? Because those are the, like those moments with friends and family, those epic moments around food is what you remember.
Yes.
So it's like just something that we shouldn't ever, I think, compromise on. I mean, obviously we can still do it in a healthy way, but you know, I think it's just
shouldn't be a sacrifice.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. And I guess the question for you is, where was the point you got to? Was there a specific point, or was it kind of a build up where you realized, oh, I have a problem that I need to work on? And did you seek help, or like what was that process like for you?
So mine actually got quite bad to the point that I was sleep eating.
Oh, okay.
So at the time, it was really hard to talk about. I don't think I really told anyone really, because I was just like, who the heck sleep eats? Who loses control that they don't know that they're eating during the night, and like waking up and being like, how did that happen? You know, not really, like I basically felt like I just completely lost control.
Yeah.
And like I tried to implement things to prevent that, like putting things in front of the door. So I would try and wake up, or even just not having foods in my house, but that only lasts so long because I'll see it and then you kind of subconsciously just tap out and just buy things.
Of course.
Yeah. And it was always foods that I had rejected or thought I couldn't eat.
That's right. You're not like binging on like foods that you eat every day and are like considered like good foods, right?
Yes.
Not binging on broccoli, right?
No, it was like, it was the food that I basically had written off in my head as like, they will make you fat, basically.
Yeah. And those are ones you're drawn to when, you know, you're just in your mind, it's like, no, I've had enough, and I'm going for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going for the peanut butter jar or whatever it is.
You nailed it. That's it.
Wait, so I haven't actually, I mean, I've heard a decent amount about eating disorders, but I haven't heard about sleep eating so much.
Yeah.
Are you legit like completely asleep, or are you kind of like in a drowsy state and you're kind of, your cognitive abilities are like dampened, or are you actually like fully asleep, you don't remember anything?
I think I went kind of between both states.
Yeah.
It was just like my level of consciousness was just out the window.
Yeah.
And there would be some times that I wouldn't even remember doing it at all.
Yeah.
But kind of like sleepwalking. So to a degree where it's like you kind of know what's going on, but not anything that's been like, what are you like? You're not being reflective. You're not being self-aware, and you're not really seeing what's happening. It's just kind of drowsy, drunk state.
And then I'm assuming when you wake up the next day and you're like, shit, I ate like a tub of peanut butter. Then the cycle repeats itself. Yeah, it basically is like there comes all the guilt and the shame that you associate with food, and then you go, you can't have that, you shouldn't eat that, like not allowed it. And then I think it builds up inside that you want it more, whether you're aware of that or not at the time. But it just became like a kind of endless cycle. And I was just like, well, like what point have I gotten to? And I'm one of those suffer in silence kind of people. Like if I'm going through shit, I just generally keep it to myself. So asking for help was really hard. And I found some places that kind of worked with like eating disorders and sleep. I kind of found a place that kind of looked at like sleep behaviors and stuff. So I kind of reached out to them, but I actually heard nothing back. So that was enough for me at the time to not want to keep, because it was, I was embarrassed. I was shamed. Like I was like, I don't even know what this is.
So I just became more kind of like, I went out and did my kind of like own research. I was trying to find answers, not really talking to anyone, because it was just like, who the heck does this? Like I've never heard about it really. And I guess I came across like different sources that I hadn't usually kind of tapped into, and we're kind of talking about like, you know, like bodybuilding and stuff like that, like examples of people that are obviously doing something that I felt like I didn't know. I felt like there was a secret about how to eat, or something that I just wasn't aware of. I was like, there must be a holy grail, because these people are doing it.
Yeah.
Like what's going on here? So I guess I started doing my own research and actually like tapping into more scientific and more science-backed kind of people or companies and stuff like that, and kind of started to kind of understand a different concept of how to eat and how to move your body and all that kind of stuff. That it was kind of enough for me to be like, well, what I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years is not working for me. And I just was like at the point with my sleep eating that I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I'm just fighting myself every day. And I don't think there was any kind of like specific moment that transitioned me, but it was enough. It was like planting a little seed that kind of led me to basically a year of discovering and learning.
Yeah.
And kind of, leading a different kind of mindset. And then I think I basically tapped into the bodybuilding way of doing things, and I was like, okay, so what do I want? And at that time it was to, you know, tone up, for lack of a better word, which I kind of read as just kind of like building muscle or lean muscle. So I kind of went into this different journey, and you know, they're encouraging to build muscle, you've got to eat more. And for someone who's just been told for like the last whole of my life, just like, you eat less, you know, you don't eat more. Right. Like, so it was a very scary concept to come across. And I think the thing that got me really through it was finding other people that had been through a very similar experience, because I could relate. And I was like, and then I saw them on the other side, right? So they're like at this point that they'd gone through this journey, and they were kind of like advocates for this journey. And I was like, well, to be honest, I've been doing this for so long and I'm not at the space that I want to be. Like, I've got to try something different. Like, I've got to do something different. Yeah. So I kind of just went all in on that. And like, it wasn't easy. And, you know, I was challenging my mind in one way of thinking to try and think a different way. And it didn't happen overnight. And it was definitely like a process of basically rewiring and just keep tapping into the sources that were encouraging like that different kind of mindset, and holding on to that, and looking for different things that I had not kind of looked for before, like performance based. Yeah. And when you go to the gym, you know, you're focusing on lifting heavier or lifting better and like technique and stuff. So it was definitely a massive mind game that I had to kind of evaluate and shift in order for my behaviors to change. Yeah. And I can only really say all this stuff like retrospectively. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I'm going through the journey, I'm just doing the best of what I could at that time. Yeah. And what I kind of knew. But retrospectively, the fact that I allowed myself to eat again, and I allowed myself to eat to society. How do you say that? Society? To satiety. That one. Yeah. 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 Then from there, my body was starting to get the food that it needed, and I'd started losing those restrictions and thoughts that I had around food. And basically the sleep eating kind of just started to like drop away because I was no longer restricting or holding myself. If I wanted to eat something, I, you know, started to let myself do that and practice that process. So it was all kind of self-done.
Yeah.
Like I would definitely encourage people to actually get professional help, because it's not a journey retrospectively that I should have gone through alone.
Yeah. But also I think like those places of help, they need to like really realize how important it is if someone reaches out to be like on the money with a reply and get them the help they need like straight away, because the act of somebody like yourself or other friends of mine that have reached out is like the biggest step, right? It's the hardest step. It's admitting that you have a problem and asking for help. And then if you don't get a reply and you just get silence, or you get something that's unhelpful, or they belittle your situation and, oh, it's not as bad as other people, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like the worst thing ever. And then you're going to be like back in square one, and you're not going to reach for help again.
Yeah.
So I think like, and I'll potentially put this in the show notes of this episode, put some like recommended resources for people of companies that are actually helping people in this situation and doing a good job of it, right?
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, super important. But I guess for yourself, Nicky, what was, you know, some of those strategies you to use throughout that period? You know, because that period of time, I'm assuming there was still some like slip ups in terms of like restriction, binge eating, things like that throughout that time.
Yeah.
But was there anything in that time you sort of implemented to help you actually decide, hey, I'm going to eat more at this meal, or I'm going to, you know, how am I going to not, you know, binge eat today, or like some kind of strategy you use, and, you know, how did you sort of see that affecting you throughout that process?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Because I don't think there was ever specifically one thing, but it was just...
Yeah, it's not like you had a rule book of like, do these 10 steps.
Yeah, do these 10 steps. And like, you know, you hear, I mean, social media at that time too, you know, everyone's got advice on everything. So you'd read people and they'd say like, do this, do this, do this. And you're just like, how though? How? Like no one's they're just saying do these things. Or like, for example, one of them was, I came across this post and this chick was basically like, you need to accept yourself as you are now for you to actually move forward.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I want to accept myself. Like I know that's where I need to be, but I don't know like how do you accept yourself from being someone who would look in the mirror every day and just destroy myself, you know, like that's not good, you're this, you're that. And that's actually where I started. I was like, okay, I'm saying these things to myself and like these are not okay. You're listening to your thoughts, right? We get so kind of, your thoughts have a lot of power in how you then perceive the world and how you perceive yourself. And that was kind of things that I'd always kind of read about myself just out of like interest, was just trying to understand reality and how we shape it through our thoughts and whatnot. So I kind of started applying, like when I would look in a mirror, I would try say nice things, or if I felt like I was saying mean things, then I'd walk away. I wouldn't encourage it. I wouldn't sit it. I think there was actually a period of time that I just didn't even look in the mirror for like a while, just so that I wasn't having these thoughts that were then encouraging the behaviors for the rest of the day. And then I think a lot of it was starting to pull back from friendships and relationships that I felt like I didn't feel good being around them. Like I felt like it was a trigger for my behaviors, and that could be, I mean, it was more a me thing. It was me comparing myself to some of my friends and wanting to look like them or be like them in a way. And then I just had to accept that like that was not, I was putting myself in environments that were not promoting basically self-acceptance or anything like that. So I started kind of putting myself in environments or being around people that encouraged body positivity and, you know, that confidence in being who you are and accepting who you are. So it was just like all these little things that just like over time actually really did add up into how I started to think. And then when I could change the way I thought, that's when I started to accept myself, because I started to have a whole different perspective on my body and on my health, and like really focus on like my mental health, which has like always been like a key thing for me. And then I think just also just talking about it openly, because it's that whole thing where it's like when you hold something so tight, you're given it power to kind of control you. But when you start having conversations, it's a release. So you kind of, the more you can open up, the more you can talk about it, the more other people are going to connect to it. And I started realizing that so many women were actually going through or had gone through very similar experiences. And then that kind of got me to the point that I was just like, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay that so many women are feeling the way I felt, and I never want anyone to go through what I went through. And then that motivated me further to actually like learn about these things so I could try and help influence other people, because it was alarming how many women just thought this way around food and their body and all that. Yeah.
And it's all such this kind of mental, like psychological minefield where, like you said, your thoughts do control you. And I think there's no substitute for like quality professional help in that situation, rather than the Instagram post that says accept your body for how you are. Like I've always seen those and gone, I don't think they're really helpful.
Yeah.
Because like you said, cool, but like if I'm in the situation where I don't accept my body, reading something that tells me to accept my body doesn't do a damn thing.
No.
So it's like, okay, we need professional help that's going to work on like, you know, using CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy, to actually help me to get through this thing. And that takes time and it takes professional help. It doesn't take just Instagram pages.
Yeah.
And like, you know, so I mean, I think that helps for sure, because you're surrounding yourself with body positivity, like you said. So, you know, flooding your mind with those types of things. But I think it just takes more than that. And I guess with you know, you changed your training at the time too, so that was focusing on performance, like you said.
Yeah.
You would have seen some changes in your physique, because, you know, up to that point, you'd only really done classes, cardio-based stuff. So do you want to talk us through what you did see in terms of the changes in your body, and did you gain body weight, and, you know, how was your nutrition then starting to shift towards that kind of training?
Yeah, so I definitely went through the whole like gainers kind of.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, like I can't do this anymore. I can't not eat food. And yeah, so I started eating more and trusting that what I was doing in the gym I was validating basically my progress by how I was lifting in the gym and getting stronger and physically being able to do things that I hadn't been able to do things before. And I just remember, like, you know, I'd spent so many years going to classes and was like, why can't I do a push-up? Like, I do this, like I try this all the time. Why can't I do it? And like at the end of the day, I wasn't fueling myself enough to actually, for my muscles to actually perform on the day. And I started being able to do things that I had never been able to do before and have always wanted to do. And so that was enough motivation to be like, you know, something's going on here. Something's cool is happening.
Yeah.
And so I really tapped into that, and I focused that because I did gain weight. Mm-hmm. And I know, like, when I talk about my journey to some people, the thing is like, oh, I don't want to gain weight though. I don't want to gain weight. And it's, you don't necessarily have to gain weight. But I think I kind of just, I embraced the process because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I've got to do it properly. I can't just be half in, half out. Otherwise, I'm never going to know if it actually truly works. So yeah, I kind of just like jumped into it and gained weight, but but I was lifting bigger than I'd ever lifted before and all that kind of stuff. So those were my cues to be like, you're in the right space.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, just the amount of energy that I had, I was no longer like hitting those kind of like 3 p.m. like sluggish times. I was totally. Like, I was just battling through it. I felt really good, and I had a lot of energy, and I was just like, okay, like something's happening. So it just constantly led to just researching more and learning more. Like my thing is just like, if you ever get to the point that you're like no longer learning, like that's just not an option for me. Like I'm just continuously curious and needing to know more. And it's like one of those things. It's like the more you know, the less you know, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's like you can never actually think you know everything.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're not thinking critically.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I've just always kind of like encouraged that kind of way of thinking for myself. Anyway, is just like learning as much as I can, and then when I get there, learning more.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's kind of what fueled me to keep progressing to the point. Yeah.
Yeah, and so much of what you're saying is building self-efficacy, which is, you know, when you do something and you're not sure if it's, you know, going to be a good idea or if it works or whatever, but it's a success. And then you do something else and it's a success. And every time you're ticking this box, which is saying, I'm doing this and it's working. I'm doing this and it's working. Like, I can do this. I will do this. Like, so every time it's like setting yourself, and we do this with clients all the time, setting yourself like the most manageable goals that you can set.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it might be something like performance based. It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to do like my first push up by implementing these other exercises that are going to build me up to doing a push up.
Yeah.
And then once you see that it works, you're like, oh, it worked.
Yeah.
Good, something's working, and it builds that self-efficacy, knowing that you're on the right track, and sort of builds that confidence going forward. I think it's just so important to set those like manageable, not sort of far-flung goals, you know, something that will actually really, really help you to manage what you're doing. And yeah, I totally agree. There's like no substitute for fuel in your body if you want, you know, to perform, right? And you just get into this point where you're like, oh yeah, finally I realized like my body's actually got what it needs to do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're like trying to do a push up and your muscles are like, you know, screw you. Like you're giving us nothing and you're trying to make me do a push up. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
And then you start like, you want that for yourself, I think. Like, so then you start really trying to fuel your body in a way that benefits you both on and off the gym. Because like I said, like my mood and my energy when I was kind of going through my eating disorder and stuff, I was a shell of a person. I just never wanted to go out and be social. And I was at a stage of my life that I was just like I want these things. Like I had FOMO for like going out and being social, but like I just wasn't in the right mindset to be able to do that. But I was like, I don't want to, go through my whole life and then think all I cared about was the way I looked. And that just for me just wasn't the experience of how I wanted my life to look. So tapping into like those kind of validation of performance-based goals, and then when you see it happening once, you then go, you know that you need to prepare your body to be able to do that. So then you really start focusing in on like what you're eating and how you're eating and stuff like that, so you can get the best out of your body. But then it becomes more than that, right? It becomes getting the best out of your mind and getting the best out of your personality, and like showing up in ways that you want to show up as essentially like your best self. But a lot of that's so connected to the food we eat that like a lot of those processes happen internally, and that gives us obviously the energy, and that affects our mood. So it affects our behaviors and how we present as well. So when I started eating better and eating more, I then was having better quality conversations with people, and I had more time and I had more energy for people. And then you start building connections, and then you know, it was like a big domino effect. And I started realizing like it can really start with, just say for food, for example, actually influences something that people don't actually connect. But when you kind of look at how the processes develop throughout the body and then how they present externally, it's like, you know, it's actually so more connected than we think.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to look at it.
Yeah.
Just that kind of like that almost like domino effect or snowball as it, you know, you ate more, you were able to have more energy, connect with more people, create a better life for yourself, you know, be involved in network. And so now you're at a point where you potentially didn't think you would be able to get to. Yeah. It's amazing.
And because, you know, you see so many people that are just used to living or even just used to the mood that they're in, and that's their normal. You know, that's their baseline, and that's what they think is normal. And, you know, you have a lot of people who then come onto plant-based and they go, wow, I've never felt so kind of like, I've never had this much energy. And it's like, naturally, that should be our level, not what we've kind of adjusted to and we're just kind of like running on. It's like constantly kind of having the E-light on your car. Like, sure, your car's still going, but like you're tithering on the edge there of basically burnout.
I feel like the environment society now demands of us really sort of exacerbates that situation. Like even like nutrition aside, the idea that we are now, you know, working these stupidly long hours and there's so much pressure on us to perform in our jobs, and then we're spending half the other time that we're not working in the car driving to and from work, living in these cities where, like, you know, there's not really how humans are designed to live in this you know, huge situation where there's just like thousands of people you don't know who they are. And all of this kind of combines, and then we've got social media on the other side of things. We've got marketing and things like this. It all combines into this like really high strung stress situation. And then we're throwing on top like hyper palatable, calorie dense foods that are like easy to obtain. They take no work to obtain, and they're at a really cheap price. And we combine this like massive storm, and then we're like, man, I feel like shit. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, because we're just not doing life how humans are supposed to be doing life. Like in no area we're really ticking the boxes. And potentially like a plant-based lifestyle is like moving towards how we should be living, because I think if you look at like not just plant-based, but you look at like veganism, it's like it's a philosophy, right? And it's a lifestyle. So it's not just what we eat. And it sort of encompasses these other areas, and hopefully people start to harness other areas like community and like slowing down and sleep and, you know, fulfillment in our jobs and things like that. But anyway, I was going to come back to a question that I had for you, and I'm interested to know, during this whole period of, you know, eating disorder recovery, were you vegan during this period?
I would have started vegetarian, and I was kind of, you know, playing around with like the raw diets and then the keto. I was basically just going along with every fad diet and being like, this isn't working. And like, I mean, half of it would come down to the fact that I was just poorly educated. You weren't like properly doing.
No. Yeah, it's like everyone that's like, oh, I tried keto. I was like, okay, like I can probably tell already that you didn't do it properly. Like you tried it.
Yeah, and then also define keto, like to what, to like,
exactly. You know, just, most people who think they're doing keto are really not doing keto. But anyways.
And it's the same with like being vegan. People go, oh, if I become vegan, will I lose weight? And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like the principles are there regardless of the type of diet you want to follow. And it's about actually learning those principles and then choosing how you want to create food from that. But so, I was vegetarian, but I was always kind of on the edge I was vegan in kind of more of my lifestyle, not so much my diet.
Gotcha.
There was still kind of, the certain foods that you just don't want to give up.
Right. Was it cheese?
It was cheese. It was cheese.
You ladies, eh?
Cheese and eggs, actually. But to be fair, I grew up hating cheese.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
And then, I thought it was so disgusting. And then, I don't know, maybe I just had little bits here and there. I think it was when I kind of started having cheese pizzas. I was like, I get it now.
It's so funny. So many ladies are just like, oh, I was going to go vegan, but I just can't give up cheese.
Yeah.
And you don't hear that from the guys. It's really the ladies. I don't know what it is. There's something about the cheese. I don't know.
Well, cheese, right, is apparently the same kind of addiction or stimulates the same addiction in your mind as cocaine or drugs.
Right.
So it's
So you're addicts.
Yeah, basically. It's more, it is. There's the reaction in the body is creating.
It's very interesting.
That kind of thing. But, and what I always say to that too is you don't have to go 0 to 100.
Yeah.
You don't, just because you can't or don't want to at the stage give up cheese doesn't mean that you can't look at other things that you don't need to be eating. Yeah. So it's the whole thing. It's you don't have to be perfect in your diet, but progressing or trying to make changes that are going to affect you and going to influence the way you feel. You don't have to go cold turkey and just get everything out of the way, but that doesn't mean then you just stay content with what you're doing. So yeah, I was vegetarian and then I went vegan, finally did it. And it was the same. I kind of looked at vegan as maybe this will help me lose weight. Maybe this will help me get the diet I want, but I also ethically resonated with that regardless.
Gotcha.
And you can have your unhealthy junk food vegans and you can have your, people that are influenced by nutrition kind of vegans. So, it wasn't more so about the type of diet. It was the behaviors around food and my understanding of what food actually meant in terms of how it influenced the body and how it created the processes in the body. So diets aside, it's not, no certain diet is going to make you lose any more weight than the other. You've got to know the principles behind it.
Yeah, totally.
So,
yeah, I always say to people, I'm like, it's almost a necessity in 2021 that we have some level of baseline nutritional knowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas in 1950, that was not the case because, you could eat a relatively balanced diet, whether it included animal products or not, and sustain your weight pretty well and be generally relatively healthy and all that. But now it's there's just no chance for people, right? Because they are the pawns of big companies that are really, really good at making products and marketing those products that just ruin your health.
Yeah.
And you keep eating them because you can't stop, right? But it's so we always have to have some kind of underlying knowledge of what does these particular foods do when they reach my body? What happens to them? Why are they so incredibly tasty? How do they affect my satiety when I eat them? How do they affect my hunger? So all these things come into play, and it's almost if we have that sort of underlying base level knowledge, then we can be better prepared to adjust our daily intake for them and adjust our habits based off that. And I just think it's so much more important in the modern day for that. But I want to wind it back. I haven't actually heard the segment of your story is how you got to vegetarianism. Yeah. Because that was at a young age.
Yes.
And it wasn't so much later on, like you were just saying, that you transitioned to a vegan diet.
Yeah.
So you're like an early adopter, you're like an OG.
There was still when you look back at it, man, there was such a big network. overseas that had really done some groundwork. But we've come such a long way, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was talking about this last night with a friend at the idea that, like, you know, back in the 70s, there was this, like, vegetarian movement and, like, vegan wasn't a thing. But the vegetarian movement was. And they were, like, these are, like, the forefathers of the vegan movement now, right? These are the people that, like, really had to suffer and, like, make do with, like, just real basic nutrition options and, you know, trying to find some plant milks and blah, blah, blah. And being labeled as, you know, these weirdo tree-hugging hippies.
Yes.
They really did it hard. And now you come to, like, 2021 and it's like, it is the simplest thing ever to make a transition.
Yeah, there's so many options now. And like I was saying the other day, like I remember going to restaurants and all they would have would be like one vegetarian option and it would be like your side salad kind of thing. And like now I can trust that I can go anywhere pretty much without having to look at the menu, and there generally is something offered. And like you see it now too, billboards everywhere, like vegan trumpets and like stuff like that. And I'm just
so
like
true.
So like taken aback because, you know, when you're growing up vegetarian and then vegan, people are like, why are you doing it? You're not going to make a difference. And I don't know, you got to stick to know what you know is right for you. But to now see essentially behaviors that were created years and years ago, you know, it takes time for things to actually pay off and to actually see how it's now shaping the world is like insane.
Yeah.
It's like, I'd never thought I'd see like a vegan billboard.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's so interesting.
Seeing that now is just like, wow.
Yeah. So it would have been so hard for you to, at that time when you first went vegetarian as a young lady, to even like foresee that, those would be options or that you would be so supported in your choices.
Yeah.
So what age were you at?
So when I went vegetarian, I was 13, 14.
Yeah, really early.
Yeah, funny story actually. It's because I got my dog and I was like, hang on a second, like people eat dogs in different countries. And that made me really start to understand my attitude towards pets and animals. And I started kind of breaking that down and was just like I would never eat my dog. Like, what's the difference between a pig or a cow or something like that? So, yeah, I shifted very early on in my adolescence years. And then it wasn't until I was about 22, 23, so about 10 years later, that I went through the process over a year. So I slowly started cutting things down. I think there was just like I said, I think the last thing I was kind of eating was eggs. And I was always hot and cold with eggs. Like eggs is a weird concept. But yeah, I think there was just like one point I was just like, nah, I'm done. And yeah, I just continued to move forward from there. I think potentially maybe having the occasional slip up or whatever, but it was just like, that doesn't then write off the whole thing altogether.
Yeah.
It's a process. And yeah, I always say to people who are like thinking about it, it's like, you don't have to like get rid of everything straight away, because that's a huge mind shift and it leads back into that restriction. I can't have that.
Right.
You want to be in a place that you're saying, I don't want that.
Right.
Not, can't have that, you know, because the words we say really affect how we then behave. So you kind of got to catch yourself in those little things and be like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Or I don't need that.
Or even like reframing it another way and saying, look what I can have now.
Yeah.
You know, and being like excited to go and try these vegan spots or this new vegan burger or whatever it is and get that kind of mindset. I think that really helped me as well as just going, oh, what can I have?
What can I have?
Yeah.
And then you'll go, yeah, that's the thing is like, I remember traveling, and being a vegan traveling was just like the best thing ever, because you're finding all these like secret little spots, and it's like people doing different kinds of food as well. And I remember when I say to people, like, when I went vegan, I actually started really tasting food. Like I started understanding flavors and enjoying food. Like I kind of just grew up with your stock standard, like bread, sandwiches, all that kind of stuff. But really starting to taste flavors that I'd never had. And I was just like, these are, you know, I was missing out before. Like I'm not missing out now.
Yeah, potentially even like you're developing new taste buds in a way, like all that changing, all that, you know, developing, but also like you're investing in like being far more explorative with your eating.
Yes.
You know, you're trying different things and you're trying these new flavors you haven't tasted before, and then you're like, oh, there's this whole other world of food that I can enjoy.
Yeah.
Especially when you're traveling. There's so many other cuisines you can enjoy, and like even these days when I travel, I just grabbed like the Happy Cow app. Yeah. Have you got that?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a game changer because you go anywhere and you're like, oh, what's around me? And you've got all these options, and you find, like you said, like these little places that are doing things differently. And yeah, it's such a fun way to eat.
Yeah, because you're kind of like seeking those out, and it becomes an experience. And yeah, it made my like traveling experience just so much more richer.
Yeah,
trying all those different foods. And yeah, I always say to people, you know, like, you know, they say, oh, you're vegan. Like, what do you eat? Like the conversation, question doesn't come up as much as it originally did. But it's just like, you know, meat's not the only food. And like our standard Western diet, that's not like the only food that's out there. And there's so much different like flavor combinations. And I don't know, basically kind of woke me up a bit.
Yeah.
And then also influenced how I cooked, because I was like, I also now have to learn how to cook, right?
Right.
Can't just live on like 2-minute noodles anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then cooking actually became an enjoyable process.
Gotcha.
And exciting. And so once again, it's just like those little things that just kind of keep you motivated to like continue to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of your recipes. They look amazing. Yeah. And you got your photography skills put to use there as well. So it's like, that looks like from a magazine. Like, that looks insane.
Yeah. Like, I mean, people like go, oh, that's so good. But it's like, by the time you actually come to like eat the food, it's like cold. Or it's like,
it's so true, isn't it?
So it's always a catch-22 on that, because it's not, you generally have to wait like an hour or two to get the shot and then enjoy the food.
Yeah, that is so true. So, Did you have anything like when you started to get more into the cooking side? Where did you go for inspiration on that, or help with the cooking side of things, or were you always just like good at cooking?
Oh no, I was like, I never cooked.
Right.
Like I thought cooking was the worst thing to ever be done.
So when you grew up, were your parents cooking vegetarian for you?
Yes.
Okay.
So originally, like, it was not something that my mum kind of wanted for me to do, but she was like, well, she's doing it anyway, and I've got to make sure I feed my kid. So yeah, she was very good. She would always cook me. And retrospectively now, like, cooking vegetarian isn't that hard,
so
you know?
easy.
It's actually very easy. So yeah, she would kind of just cook me, you know, like pasta and stuff like that. So
yeah,
my mum did very much of the cooking, and then yeah, there came a point when I became vegan. That's when I was like, I need to learn how to cook. And I actually came across some really great food blogs. I don't know, have you ever heard of Miss Baker?
Oh yes, yeah, I have. Yeah.
She's no longer vegan now.
Gotcha.
But at the time, she was, and she still does a lot of like vegan recipes. So that was pretty much like my handbook in like cooking. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, she's a great resource.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and just doing so many like exciting different things, especially with like your plain food in so many different ways. So
how would you sort of like, if you want to like run through how you typically would structure your day of eating now to support your current, you know, level of activity and training? Yeah, so
I mean, I've experimented so much with you know, the whole how many meals a day should I eat, or do I want to eat, and then also kind of like what kinds of food do I want those meals to be. But now I'm at a really, really good stage where for me, I pretty much eat like 3 meals a day. That's pretty works with my timetable and keeps me like full for it. So I just make sure that I'm kind of getting the whole carbs, proteins, fats at every meal. And I've been finding that that's just like been fueling me like really well. And then if I know that I'm going to be training, making sure I'm like kind of eating to fuel that training session, and what is required. And honestly, I would say because of how, like, I'm not a regular person in terms of like, I would never suggest to someone do as much exercise as I am. So I'm slightly unrelatable in that sense because of my job. But honestly, the biggest thing is actually water, like just getting enough water. I notice that if I don't have enough water during the day, then the next day, like I'm off and I'm tired and I'm slow. And I always say to people, it's kind of like, did you ever play The Sims?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't really go into it, no.
Oh, you missed it out.
I know what it was. Yeah.
But like basically with The Sims, right, you've got to tick or you've got to meet, I think it's like 5 or 6 of their things to create a happy sim. And like one of them's like sleeping and like eating and then hygiene and like, you know, basic human needs.
That's
and
so
that's all that I focus on now is just like making sure that I'm hitting my basic human needs, like sleeping, like water, like food. And I find that that's actually what my body needs. Yeah. You know, like it can actually be that simple.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just like becoming aware of that.
Yeah, totally.
Because so many things we write off, like I'm really like tired today, and it's like we then don't connect that with, did you have quality sleep?
Yeah.
Did you eat enough?
Yeah.
You know, we just think it's this external thing that's happened to us as opposed to basically a byproduct of what we've done for the last day, week, month. So it's just about like really connecting those like dots. And so when I'm not feeling my best, then I'll reflect on my behaviors for that week in terms of sleep, water and stuff like that. So it's just making sure that I keep basically your basic human needs met.
But it's like you said, not many people are actually ticking those boxes because they're letting other like external factors dictate what they do with their time.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm tired, but I got to go to this like party tonight, or I've got to go to this event, or like, you know, but and because we have so many of those throughout the week, like more than any human has had in history, are we committing ourselves to things, right? And so we're not actually taking that time to be like, you know, I am tired, so I'm not going to do anything, and I'm gonna prioritize those 6 like healthy human, you know, behaviors, right?
Yes.
So it's a real tricky one, but you have to be aware, and it takes a like yourself, it takes a certain amount of practice of doing this day by day to realize, oh, like I feel a bit rubbishy today. Maybe I didn't hydrate enough yesterday.
Yes.
Or even like I messaged the group this morning and I said like, I'm not going to train tonight because I'm feeling like beat up.
Yeah.
And I know that from like years of experience of like when I get to this point and I start to feel little niggles and aches and pains, I'm like, I'm about to like pull a muscle basically.
Yeah.
And because I've done it so many times.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's listening to you.
It's actually being aware. Yeah. And just actually like once you've heard the signal, acting on it.
Yes.
You know?
Well, it's like your body is not removed from you. And I think, you know, it's a concept that we have in society as we're kind of removed from the planet almost.
Yeah.
Like we're not from the planet,
so interesting.
You know? And so it's kind of like the same with your body. It's like all these things are happening and especially with like your mood and your energy, but you don't ever then look at where it started, and generally it's within your body. And so it's like generally your body's trying to give you clues and cues on like what it needs or what it's not getting, and it's like starting to actually listen to those and be like, even just small shifts. Like I'm quite intuitive now that I can feel a shift in my energy when I'm like either starting to drop or whatever, and can now kind of like pinpoint what I need from that. But like it was something like I didn't I didn't grow up with. I always kind of was removed from myself, and you just keep pushing your body until, you snap basically.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, your body's like, even just like your external, your skin, all those kinds of things are connected to what's happening internally.
Yeah.
So your body's like this massive clue on how you're operating.
Right.
And like how you're presenting. So it's basically just drawing yourself back to that.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
I love it.
Well, that's how I go for it anyway.
No, that's great. It's a great way to live for sure.
Yeah.
So I got a couple of final questions for you.
Yeah.
First one being, I love to ask people specifically in the vegan movement, or actually I ask a lot of the guests that aren't in the vegan movement, especially because I like to see what they're seeing from the outside.
Yeah.
But from your perspective, where do you see veganism going? Where do you see the trend going? What do you think we can do better?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question.
Yes.
It's always, it's hard because like I said, I never thought of the space that we're in now being a reality. I never thought we'd have so many vegan options. I didn't even think we'd have vegan ice cream, so how far we've come in the last 10, 20 years is insane. And I do see, I mean, yeah, it's growing, isn't it? It's, the trend line is that it's progressing. So it can only continue essentially as people become more holistic with their health and their wellness, not just looking at just one thing, exercise or food. They start looking at everything. Then they're going to start being confronted with what goes in their body. And they're going to, I think with all the options now, people are more open to trying new foods. And the fact that I know so many vegans now too, when I grew up being the only vegan I knew. And then, someone knows someone who's vegan. It's just about having those conversations and creating that dialogue for an open conversation about veganism, as opposed to going from an activist stance, you versus me. So I think people will continue to be curious, as well as with, unfortunately, the marketing that's put out in the world is such a huge influence for a lot of people. But the marketing is becoming more plant-based, even just around environmental issues and stuff like that. You see the milk companies promoting plant-based bottles. And so the conversation that is being marketed is starting to go that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we're in a very challenging time. I think the world's going to be changing a lot in a very small amount of time, whereas previously it's taken longer for things to change.
Yeah.
Because we're just so reactive now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how it goes. But my biggest concern is that we don't then go to vegan processed foods.
Yeah.
Because then you're having the same argument with health, and people will just tie in the whole vegan label to all of that.
Yeah.
So it's still focusing on bringing it back to whole foods and quality nutrient dense foods.
Yeah, totally.
As opposed to just becoming junk food vegans.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
which is very easy to do now.
It's you see companies like McDonald's and Burger King and all that stuff bringing in vegan options, but it's still not nutritional, so it's, people might start to go vegan, but they might start to go vegan in the same way that they've always eaten, which is processed foods.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That'll be interesting.
It will be. I'm also very aware that a lot of the vegan movement as a whole is very Western world based, developed world based, or affluent society based, right?
Yeah.
We're out here in a very a high socioeconomic status area where people have money and they have options and they have support available to them. And I feel like a lot of the reductions in meat consumption around the world are from these types of countries, which is fantastic. But then that doesn't mean to say that the global intake of animal products is decreasing.
Yeah.
And in actual fact, a lot of the slaughterhouses and things like this in these Western countries are now just exporting to countries that are now developing and are creating this thirst for animal products, right?
Yeah.
Places like China, places like India, places like Brazil, who are now like really developing as nations and developing this like thirst for the Western diet.
Yes.
So I'm just very aware and I'm very interested to see how that goes. Because it would be a shame just to have all these, very like health conscious, environmentally conscious countries and then have these other countries with huge populations that we're just exporting all our meat to.
Yes.
So I'm interested to see where that goes, and I don't want to be like too pessimistic about it, but I think hopefully we can create change in these areas as well.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, it's coming down to marketing and awareness, and these companies that are marketing these goods, it's because there's a demand, right? And they kind of capitalize on that because it's just coming down to capitalism, basically, right? So so it's very interesting to see how it all unfolds, but interesting times ahead. I do have a final big question for you.
Yeah, go on.
That I ask like majority of people at the moment, which is, geez, I'm finding it hard to remember the question. What is one eye-opening experience you think every human should have?
Oh, you really put that one on the spot, hey?
I never put it like in the show notes because I don't want someone to be able to think too long about it.
To calculate it, yeah.
Just from like your own experiences as a human in your environment, what do you think someone should have the experience of seeing or experiencing or?
You know what? I think because one of the things is like I always think what is the switch that makes someone think differently, or even with myself, I'm like, how did I change my perspective on that given the environment that I was in was not encouraging a different way of thinking and stuff like that. And I kind of had this conversation with someone else the other day, and I think it's just experience people and experience as many people as you can. And that means having conversations and being open-minded to everyone, because I think when you keep yourself in this little bubble with the same people, with the same thoughts, with the same narrative, your perspectives aren't being challenged and you're kind of just going about your way. I think when you start to really open up to different people and experiencing different people, then you start experiencing different ways of thinking and different ways of behaving. And then you start to really like understand how to empathize. And I think that just promotes a much richer life experience because it brings it back down to connection too, right? And community. And I think in a world where we're becoming so individualistic, we need to push for community, because I think that's what's actually within us. We want to be, we want to be around people and we want to be accepted and have purpose and feel connected. So I would say the biggest thing people could probably do, or should do, is just aim to experience other people, as many people as you can. Yeah.
That's really good.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. Where did that come from? I mean, that was really good. Yeah.
And
no,
dogs.
that's bang on.
Experience dogs.
Experience dogs.
I think having a dog in your life makes a huge difference.
Yes.
That's an experience as well.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a really insightful discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Lots of fun. I think the listeners will enjoy this one, and we touched on some subjects that we haven't covered so far on the podcast. So super cool. That's it, guys. If you want to get in touch with Nicky, you can find her on Instagram at goodfornix, and you can find out all about her nutrition coaching, recipes, anything about Westwood Cycle, all that good stuff on there. If you want to get in touch with me, at veganbody.coach on Instagram. That is also the website address, veganbody.coach. If you want to apply for coaching, a whole bunch of details up there for you as well. Feel free to share this one on your stories. I'd love to see it. Let me know where you're listening from, what you're doing when you listen. That's always exciting to see. And hey guys, we're going to see you in the next episode. It's going to be episode 24. So we're well into 2021. Very exciting. Hope you're safe. Hope you're well. Get some training in. And as always, more plants.